Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 17th day of January 2022, and it's now 13 minutes past 7 o'clock, and we are concluding on the conversation about the One Kenya Alliance, what is becoming an identity crisis. And Fred, I was asking you the question because in your presentation you said that you want to pick a candidate who can go and make friends. You already have that candidate, and once you declare, it will shock Kenyans. Why would we be shocked? And what does it mean to go and make friends? Is it outside One Kenya Alliance, into Azimio, or into UDA? What's the position?
The reason why I'm saying that announcement, when it finally happens, it will shock Kenyans, because Kenyans have been asking One Kenya Alliance to avail the candidate. And as you know, the IBC timelines, we are still within the IBC timelines. And if you remember the last election, some of the coalitions availed their candidates.
Fred, just hold on. I don't have a doubt that you're still within the timelines. I'm just asking the context in which you say your pick will shock Kenyans, and that you say go and make friends.
Because that candidate will be most suitable, capable, and competent to win election. And just to correct also what I've seen people say, there is a female principal in the OCA coalition or formation in the name of Martha Karua. So we have all what it takes to present to the people of Kenya a suitable and competent candidate that shall compete or even make friends when need be with other competitors. And you have seen the media is also already reporting the OCA is a headache to Raila and William Ruto. Why is it a headache? Because this is the shock that they're waiting for. Why is everyone talking about OCA? Because OCA is like that beautiful lady in the village that every man would want to have. It is a shock.
You just dropped a name, Martha Karua. Is that your candidate?
Martha Karua is a principal at the pinnacle. She could be, she could not be.
I mean, Fred, just tell us, you know the candidate. Who is it?
We have said that that candidate will be unveiled in a ceremony where the public are seated and gathered so that we present that candidate to the public. Today, we are talking about a report that has been handed over. I will be doing a lot of injustice to that report if I unveil the candidate on a TV show. We shall wait for that day. It is coming very soon.
Okay, we'll wait for it if you insist. But let's now listen to, or rather look at the chaos that were at Jacaranda as Deputy President William Ruto went on with a rally in that area of Embakasi East. Watch.
Mutakubali tupangwe na vita ya mawe? Mutakubali tupangwe na ukabila? Mutakubali eti tupangwe na vitisho? Mutakubali eti tuuziwe uoga? Wale wanafikiri wanaweza kutuuzia siasa ya mawe, tunawaambiaje? Hii ndio mwaka. Tutamaliza kiburi, tutamaliza madharau, tutamaliza siasa ya mawe, tutamaliza vita ya kisiasa, na tutaweka heshima kwa Wakenya wote. This violence, you the master of violence, and you want to tell us that you are interested in the unity of our nation. I want to say from Chagaranda, here in Chagaranda, these young people you are using to throw stones, they are only available to you for the next 6 months. After that, these young people, they will be unavailable, because we will give them jobs and we will make them work for their sweat. Vita ya mawe, vitisho ambayo unajaribu kuniletea mimi. My friend, mimi sijanunua fear from anybody.
That's the Deputy President, of course, expressing frustrations that he believes that Raila Odinga has something to do with it. And of course, Raila Odinga's team responded. We'll be looking at the graphics shortly from now. But first, Honorable Boss, what happened? Were you in attendance?
Yes, I was.
What exactly happened? Because you witnessed.
Just before I say that, I think it's fitting for me to respond to what has just been said, that Oka is going to avail a candidate and it will be shocking. There's nothing shocking. Already Gideon Moi was unveiled in Kasarani as the presidential candidate for KANU. Already Kalonzo Musyoka, several months before that, also unveiled himself, I think, under the brand name Maradafu or Marudufu, something like that. I think already Raila was also unveiled in Kasarani. So there is no shocker. I think we know that Martha Karua has also indicated an interest. So we know the principles that have presented themselves. The methodology they are using, the scientific data that they are calculating on the ground, like I said, is very strange. Historically, whether in America or any other country, candidates go out to the people, present themselves. What usually happens is other parties do polls in order to gauge the popularity of the person. And there will be an annual delegates conference of UDA where we shall endorse, we shall now pick the presidential candidate. And that is what happened. You've seen it happens in America. Several people say we are the Democratic candidates. They go out to the people, and then there is a delegates conference of the political party, and that is where they endorse. So even in UDA, if anybody wants to present themselves as a presidential candidate, no one has stopped them because we have an opportunity to pick at the annual delegates conference. But the requirement is that you need to have gone out to the people first, and then it will be assessed where you have received acceptability from the people out there on the grassroots and not in the boardroom. Now, let me talk about Jacaranda. I was present in Jacaranda yesterday. I was on the podium, therefore I could see everything that was happening from there. In fact, if anybody watched the videos, I was standing most of the time and looking out at the horizon. It was clear there were the crowds, and I arrived there before the deputy president's team arrived. And there was pockets. In fact, if you actually have the aerial views, which were taken by drones, will show you that initially there was one pocket, and each time they were heckling. And it was a small group. After a while, the others who were part of the actual crowd coming to listen to the deputy president actually pushed them back, and they went to the back. After a while, they regrouped again and came on another pocket. And they had stones, and they were trying to create violence. But if you look at the cameras, it was clear that there was the group that was in the front there were those who were. We had a group at the front who were part of our group. There were those at the far back who were also part of our group. And then there were these pockets that were in between. They were repulsed, they did go back, and then came back, and then went back. But I must commend the police, because at the time when they started throwing stones, the police came in, and the police cordoned off and kept them off the main rally. And so they stayed in the periphery. In fact, when the tear gas was thrown, it was at that group that was trying to come forward and throw stones. And they were clearly chanting, "Hatutaki Ruto, tunataka Babu." So it is obvious that it is Babu's crowd, because it is unusual for people to go to a rally that is not the subject of the rally and then start pelting stones and chanting somebody's name, and they are not scattered across the entire crowd. They are in small groups. Those are paid crowds. Those are people who have been brought there to come and cause chaos. And true, that was expected. That is ODM's signature, is stones throwing and violence. They have not changed. If you remember, Jimmy Wanjigi...
Is that a fair statement? Because
it is a fair statement, because stone throwing has always happened to anybody who has tried to go to ODM and ODM tough.
That's what I'm asking.
If you look,
when you say the ODM way of doing things, who do you attribute it to? Because the deputy president is blaming Raila Odinga, and shortly we'll be looking at what the actually, let's look at Raila Odinga's response, the team of Raila Odinga, just a moment, Honorable Boss. And they sent a statement in the evening saying that violence has been part and parcel of Ruto's brand of politics right from the time he introduced himself to Kenyans through the YK92, and continue to say that Other than use of money to buy support, violence is Ruto's main tool for political ascendance. And of course, it's a statement that was signed by, I believe, Dennis Onyango. So this trading of accusations that you're responsible, no, it's you who is responsible. I mean, how then do we resolve it? Because political hooliganism is truly pretty unfair when it comes to political competition in this country, and I would say it's actually criminal.
Yes, I don't think everyone who studied this knows that ODM has always been known to be stone-throwing people. And all of this has always been orchestrated by Raila Odinga. He has always refused to obey the rule of law. We know, in 2017, when he lost elections, what did he do? He went on the street and made Nairobi ungovernable and made sure that people could not function. He rioted, he sat on the streets, he was tear-gassed until IEBC left. After IEBC left, he decided that then he swore himself in, which again was a treasonable offense. Yet he got away with it. So he has always been either I get my way or I will cause mayhem until I get my way. When the Supreme Court nullified the elections, Jubilee humbly went back to campaign. What did Raila Odinga do? He told his people boycott elections. And what did they do? They stoned the IEBC officials who tried to take the ballot papers in the various parts of his home turf in Nyanza. They blocked the roads. We know that. They damaged vehicles that were transporting ballot papers because they had decided they are going to boycott the election. So yes, that is true of Raila Odinga. And yesterday, it was obvious that those were crowds that had been sent there to cause the mayhem. It was good that the police managed to cordon off and the rally was able to go on.
Honorable Boss, it is factual that on 26th of October 2017, there are some parts of this country that were not able to vote, parts of Nyanza, I believe. And actually, what you're saying is true, that roads are barricaded, IBC officials are not able to go ahead.
Some were even injured.
But
people did die during that. Remember the baby Pendo and all?
Yes.
So that has been added.
All those
and don't forget that Jimmy Wanjigi was stoned. Jimmy Wanjigi, who is financier of ODM, was stoned. So was William Ruto's entourage in Nyanza.
Aman, so, because all those are facts of history, but now we are in 2022, and I believe the interest of Kenyans is to have a free, fair, credible election. Political hooliganism is not part of that fairness. What do we do to resolve these sort of chaos and also the profiling that goes with what you see the Raila Odinga team accusing DP Ruto and the side of DP Ruto accusing Raila Odinga?
We must begin by condemning violence. We are in the 21st century. We can do our politics without stone throwing, without all forms of violence, any form of violence. Leaders must be at the forefront of condemning violence. Because countries that have gone aflame, sometimes it was because of very simple things, not really big things. So leaders must condemn violence. The second thing we need to say, that politics everywhere has some element of heckling and so on and so forth. It's undesirable, it's unnecessary, but sometimes it's part of it. You saw the Trump rallies in 2016. Sometimes he was barricaded, and there were two teams, and So this is really you cannot use that to make very strong statements. The third thing I want to say is that we must not blame each other. The blame can destroy this country. You cannot say ODM, their signature is violence. You cannot say ODM are people who throw stones. Because somebody else could tell you, and that would be very sad for this country, that is better a stone than an arrow. You see what I'm talking about? So let's not blame each other. Because I heard Jeremiah Kioni say, afadhali mtu anangoa reli kuliko mtu anangoa kitu ile ingine, which I can't mention on TV. I think you've seen that clip. So this blame from politicians, I don't want to hear it. I don't even like that statement from ODM. That's not the thing to do. We are in an election year. A highly charged election. We must do everything within our reach as leaders and as media to avoid situations that can set this country on fire. And finally, I noticed something, and glad boss Charela is here. I hope she'll take this to Ruto. he is playing right in the hands of his opponents. I saw him ruffled, rattled, and almost incoherent. And when you bring somebody like Raila into what are basically small little things that you could be organized, I like when you mentioned Babu. If you mentioned Babu, I would not be surprised. But to bring Raila, a statesman, into stone throwing...
What do you mean you'll not be surprised?
These politicians at that level are known for all manner of small little things, trying to prove to their principles that I'm not saying he has done that. I'm saying I would understand, like she has said. I would understand if somebody like Sudi or anybody else were said to have organized something in Eldoret against Raila. But if somebody said it was Ruto, I would not take you to
Raila had a peaceful visit and rally.
Just allow him to finish.
Let me just make my point. In other words, I'm not saying it will be good for a member of parliament to organize violence, but I'm saying it is within my comprehension. I can understand that is possible. But when a leader at the level of William Ruto brings Raila at the level of heckling and throwing stones, it does himself a lot of disservice, the way I'm seeing. So we must not blame each other. And a leader like Ruto and Raila should not sink to the level that I saw the deputy president sinking at Jacaranda. It's in his interest I'm saying these things. Because, you know, when you say like that, you charge people. When you charge people, they may want to retaliate. They may want to hit at Raila in some rally. You see what I'm saying? Then something will get out of control. And this is our country. We love it. This Nairobi is the capital of this country. We want peace in this country, in this city, because investors will run away before we get into the elections. They'll take another 2 years to come back. And we are talking about our boys getting jobs, our girls getting jobs. Let us avoid situations where people of the level of William Ruto descend that low to associate somebody like Raila Odinga with heckling. That's unacceptable. I think it's not good.
Oh, okay. And Honorable Mbui, what must we do now to secure these elections so that people can argue their case, whether it's One Kenya Alliance, whether it's Azimio la Umoja, whether it's UD or whichever other political party, you can argue your case and Kenyans are free to make their decision in a manner that is pretty believable?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. First, maybe we need to ensure that when people like my friend Gladys Boss-Sholoi do not seem to be giving lectures on politics to Oka principles on studio, because you know that is also not right. I mean, when she says that you cannot unveil a candidate in this manner, you cannot meet in a boardroom, you cannot discuss it this way, you have to do it this way, you have to go to the people first. I think that in my opinion is one of those things that we are calling toxic politics, because I mean really we have to give respect to all our leaders. But you see, I also want to condemn these hooligans, and I will say that they are actually basically illegal. What they are doing is against the law. It's against the elections law. And clearly, violence, insults, even those online insults that are all over social media, voter bribery, all these things are against the law. And I think maybe what we need is our law enforcement officers to ensure that they take action against certain individuals, maybe bar them from vying in the next election, so that we can scare politicians out of these habits. Because as long as it becomes an issue of trading barbs on maybe on TV or maybe even in podiums out there in rallies, then at the end of the day, we don't get to the bottom of it. In this particular case, I think there was clearly some violence. I know we have NIS that know what is going on the grassroots. Why can they just arrest one or two of those people? Then we get to know who was actually the financier of the violence. And maybe you'll be surprised. I know that Kenyans know. Sometimes to seek sympathy, you can actually organize for people to make it look like it is your opponents that are attacking you. It is one of the tactics that are used in politics. So we don't know. We don't know whether it was sympathy. We don't know whether it was really an outright assault at the deputy president's function. But clearly, I think the law enforcement officers need to address this matter, get to the bottom of it, let action be taken against the perpetrators. It happened before, severally actually, this last year. And every time we talk about it, nobody ever gets charged, nobody ever gets jailed. The truth never seems to get out. Yet I know there are people within senior offices of law enforcement that know the real truth. So let's get to the bottom of this particular one. It happened in the city of Nairobi. And like we are saying here, Sam, and like Haman has said, you know, if we don't deal with it now, then we are slowly escalating to a position where by August, things might be out of control. I looked at the police that were there, and let me tell you, I was very scared.
Right.
I saw like a contingent of about 10 or 15 police officers against thousands of Kenyans, and I thought, what if these people turned against the police? The police would not be able to handle them with tear gas. And they were even told by my former member of Wiper, Johnston Muthama, that we don't fear tear gas. Take tear gas and throw back at them. This is we all had it. And the police have said nothing about it. Muthama has probably not been arrested. Even that is inciting violence against our security forces. Clearly, I think something needs to be done. I am not supporting one side or the other. I'm just saying that anyone who is wrong, irrespective whether they're in One Kenya or Azimio or UDA, let action be taken against them. My party leader talked about toxic politics. That's what he talked. That's what he means. If we are not careful, we will be unable to run this country. Even after the August elections, it happened in 2007. We are headed towards that. You heard the comments also made in Eldoret. Right. I mean, when people talk about some tribes being pulled out, some people being pulled out, Asians were castigated, and people who do not belong were also told, these people are amongst us, let's get rid of them, because in Mount Kenya we have agreed to vote this way, and there are some here who are not in agreement. Clearly, I think something needs to be done.
And of course, those are some of the matters that are being investigated by different agencies. We understand that Senator Linturi was released on bail, and I believe Senator Aaron Cheruiyot and one MP, Richard Onyonka, were required to record statements. But Fred, as you reflect on this, the voter registration begins today, and you'd expect that the would-be voters will be looking at their screens, reading the newspapers, and listening to their radio platforms or even social media to understand who they need to vote. But when this ugly head of violence is in the headlines, it obviously affects how people are able to make decisions. So what would be your voice to the Kenyans as they judge the political class?
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Now, first of all, as Kenya African National Union can, we strongly condemn any elements of hate, violence, and political intolerance. Because as a party, we vision a country that is guided by the rule of law, united, free, and secure. We have not seen that. And by the way, Sam, that element or those elements of violence has been systematic. If you remember the yellow fever rally in Kisumu, there were some elements of violence. If you remember the yellow fever rally in Eldoret, there were some elements of hate. If you remember the yellow fever rally yesterday, there was some element of violence again. How come these elements of violence are systemic in one political party? And as KANU, we are saying our vision do not allow or prohibit elements of insecurity, elements of disunity. So maybe there's a problem in the vision of that party, or maybe there's a problem in the vision of the flag bearer of that party. But we condemn. And again, lastly, Sam, you know, politics is competition. And because politics is also steered by propaganda, I want to agree with Professor Hammond. Maybe, and maybe the police should tell us, maybe somebody could have planted the perceived opponents so that they can see how they can seek sympathy. We are told of sympathy addicts, but I don't want to believe that's what happened. We want to ask the police and the investigative agencies to tell us exactly what happened, because we would not want to see the same happen in our rallies as Kenya African National Union or in our rallies as OCA. We condemn that act strongly, and we would want to ask the relevant authorities to investigate, because when that's allowed, it will spread like bushfire, and we know what happened in 2007. We have seen people threatening others. They are telling people in the rally that mtajua hamjui. What does that mean, Sam? It means that people's lives are in danger. We must play politics of friendliness, politics of ideologies, politics of cooperation, and politics of agenda. When some people say they have agenda, it is turning out they don't have an agenda. Their agenda is violence. We want to ask, please, let's stop these acts of hooliganism. and violence. And if it is true that an opponent planted his goons, then that opponent must be apprehended immediately. Because the moment we allow this to continue, we are opening floodgates of more violence and more violence. OCA, and particularly Constituent Party KANU, led by Senator Gideon Moi, believes in the vision of security of Kenya, free, fair, and competition that is governed by the rule of law. We want to ask that let's be tolerant to each other even as we compete.
Okay, all right. And of course, last year when there were some instances, the IBC said that they cannot implement the code of conduct because the election period had not started. It still hasn't started. It begins once IBC gazettes the notice of general election, which should be in March this year. So I don't know what we do between now and then. But also, over the weekend, there has been a few political events that happened, including Raila Odinga was in Thika, in Kiambu County, where he held a meeting. They're saying Azimio Mtaani. Let's listen to what he had to say to the people of Thika.
Tuna maazi mabarabara mingi zile za maumau ambayo iko hapo naendelea. Na hakikishia nyinyi yale miradi yote Uhuru ameanza zitaendelea chini yangu. Then now I got to know that Uhuru was being held hostage by forces who wanted him to fail. And then to later on come and claim credit over those failures. But you can see when he started now working properly in his second term, there's quite a lot that has been achieved. Hadi shindani umekuwa kwa serikali miaka 8. Kazi imekushinda. Toka wacha baba onyeshe wewe.
All right, that's Raila. I see Herman laughing. That's Raila Odinga, of course, getting at the deputy president, accusing him of saying that Uhuru Kenyatta has been successful in the second term, sort of blaming the deputy president for maybe what may not have been achieved in the first term. Is that really fair, Herman? Because we all know the relationship that the president has had with the deputy in the second term. Is it fair or is it just politics that Raila Odinga is playing?
Well, it is politics. Raila Odinga wants to be the president of this country. Ruto is a man standing in between him and the president. So there will be things he will say, certainly. That's not strange, that's politics. But there's also an element of, there's also a lot of truth in what he's saying. That Ruto is part and parcel of this government. But again, Ruto, on his defense, would say he's not the president of the Republic of Kenya. The president is Uhuru Kenyatta. But again, he will entangle himself in the mess by again saying that they did a lot during the first term. So it's contradiction after contradiction. And you then, when you work like that, you open yourself to attack from your people like Raila Odinga, because they say, look here, this doublespeak, which means you've really done nothing. You want to enjoy the benefits of the Uhuru government, and at the same time, you want to say it has been messed by Raila Odinga. So I think you would expect a lot of this to happen. I'm not seeing anything basically strange. But again, what Raila is saying again is true, that a lot of work is going on, depending on what you call work. You know, my standards are so high, people call me a pessimist. So let me not go there. Let me just say within the context of what Kenya say, ini kazi.
So you think that has been successful because of the change in relations between the president and
it can't be because of the change of relations between Uhuru and Ruto. Certainly, it is because of the peace that was achieved and arrived at because of the handshake. See, you can look at Kenya and say, what would Kenya be today without the handshake? Perhaps we may not be having a country. And even if we had a country, perhaps a lot of what has been achieved may not have been achieved. And if it was achieved, not at the pace. You see what I'm saying? So this is a mixed thing. It is true that Uhuru continues to work for the people of Kenya. If you were to put on the table what he has done, then certainly it will shame what Ruto is saying. Because it's not true that work stopped in 2017 or 2018. It's not true, certainly. You can